Spshelle Rutledge is a graduate of National University, completing her Bachelor of Science in Healthcare Administration and her Master of Public Health. She is an outreach coordinator with the Breaking Down Barriers program at Jewish Family Service San Diego. A veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, she has a unique perspective and background. Her capstone project for the Master of Public Health program was on the topic of reducing veteran suicide. She currently serves on the San Diego County Suicide Prevention Council and is a board member of the American History Theater. She is also a member of the American Public Health Association and was recently inducted into the Honor Society of Public Health. In this episode, you'll hear about turning points in her life to get her to her current path, her research interests, and how understanding and focusing on mental health has become her focus. Life keeps her very busy with her career, continuing her education, pursuing a doctoral degree in behavioral health with Arizona State University, and as a mom of a young son that keeps her motivated and focused on the future.
I'm an outreach coordinator / mental health educator for the county funded program Breaking Down Barriers under the one of the largest nonprofits in San Diego, Jewish Family Service of San Diego. I am a Marine Corps veteran, so I did 4.5 years in the Marine Corps before I retired out. I am a National University alum, so I received my Bachelor's of Science in Healthcare Administration from National, and then I decided to continue my education and get a Master's in Public Health when I realized I had a passion for it from National University as well, specializing in mental health. And so while actually at National University, I got the opportunity to study abroad for a few weeks in Peru, Cusco to be specific, in which I provided mental health education to the children out there, as well as adults, and provided medical aid in general. I'm working on a doctorate in behavioral health. Finally, it took some time, took some setbacks, but I'm here. Figuring out those things early on, and then pursuing education as it pertains to that, and doing research as it pertains to public health and mental health led me into what I do now. It really started when I was around 7 years old, health and my desire or interest in it. I remember coming home from school one day around the time in the 90s, it was about the 90s, late 90s, when they had a program called DARE, and they were trying to stop smoking or stop people from smoking cigarettes. I remember getting a bunch of pictures of blackened lungs, what happens from prolonged smoking more often than not. And so I remember my father, he smoked packs a day on a regular basis, right? And my father, he comes from, humble beginnings, Birmingham, Alabama, grew up as an African-American male, in the South. And so he faced various systemic oppressions and things such as that. So even having served in the Army like he did, he still experienced a lot. So of course, a lot of times underserved groups tend to look for ways to cope, and smoking was one of his. And so when I found this out, at school, I remember running home and couldn't wait to tell my dad. I did. I showed him the lens. I said, "This is what's going to happen to you if you keep smoking." And so it was interesting because being so young and educating my dad, it was the first time I, said something, educated someone on something, and ultimately it resulted in a change behavior. And so my father had some discipline, in which I feel I get it from, to quit cold turkey. Not easy for anyone to do, I know. And so he did quit, and never smoked up until now. He has it for over 20 years. I went to school, middle school, high school, was going down a not so good path with some of the people I associated with. I was pretty quiet and shy, but I still was going to be part of the school to prison pipeline, getting suspended sometimes and such. And so by the time I ended up in high school, there was a military ROTC gentleman who introduced me to ROTC, and I just went with it. And so as a result, I didn't think college was for me. I did not. And so I ultimately joined the Marine Corps, right? I figured they were the best proud to join. I wanted to do something with my life, despite my setbacks, make a difference in health. And so while I was at Wounded Warrior Battalion in California, I would remember being attached and helping out a gentleman who had PTSD very bad, because he sadly had to serve his country, but then he ended up, killing others, and that really affected him. And so I remember doing things to try to appease him and help him, like putting on Bob Marley, stuff like that. Because at the same time that I came home from serving and got the Purple Heart and everything, his wife decided to divorce him because, she didn't understand. And it made me think, wow, I really want to maybe be in a position to help, family members and community people understand a person when they're going through a mental health crisis or when they have a mental health condition, because obviously there's so many people who don't know. I remember there would be volunteers, to wrap up. I remember there would be volunteers that would come and assist Wounded Warriors. They get a lot of funding, a lot of help and stuff. And I remember they would look at people like me and him and think that we're part of staff. And they would tell us, no, you're not supposed to be here to get this, because they seen us as not having a problem. Because when we talk about mental health conditions, it's not always visible, right? So we look fine on the outside until you start talking to us, until you start to understand our story, until you understand. Yeah. And so it made me think, man, this is not okay. So ultimately, led me to at first starting off being a bachelor's in healthcare administration, taking a class that was about behavioral health, and wanting to research more on what kind of degree centers that change behavior, or helping to facilitate change behaviors. And public health did for me, because I'm not more of a one-on-one type of person. I like to affect masses, if that makes sense. So like groups at a time, I feel is what I'm called to. I was in a position and had the privilege to resign from a job that I was having at the time and go back to school. What I advise others to do all the time, volunteer. I decided to volunteer many places to see exactly what I wanted to do in public health, right? And so volunteering helped tremendously. Being part of SOUL, San Diego Organization of Healthcare Leaders, helped me tremendously. And then now I'm actually part of the American Public Health Association, and just got inducted into the Honor Society of Public Health, to be exact, this year, as a result of my service and what I've done. But I wouldn't have been able to do any of these things, or be in even the position I'm in at JFS for now over 2.5 years, if it wasn't for me volunteering and doing research in my field. When I was actually incurred my own traumas, service-related disabilities, I guess you can say, right? And so I remember choosing to be hospitalized and going through the process myself, going to group therapy, going to therapy, and seeing the benefit that it did for me. And unlike and just understanding more about the impact one can make from just speaking up and out, and not being afraid to, or feeling shame, and speaking about your health and wellness, right? And that just because, like any other disability, you could still excel as long as you're made aware of what's going on with you and you seek the help that you need. You can still have healthy relationships. You can still have healthy, work for an organization and remain healthy. You can still have healthy relationships with your family. You can still, navigate life like anyone else, so long as you, speak up and out, and understand that you're not alone. And so the turning point for me was when I realized I was putting so much on my plate, trying to do the most, being a female Marine, being a woman, being a Marine at that, and being a woman of color at that is not light, okay? And something like one of the hardest branches to get into and excel in. But yet I was able to honorably discharge, despite I was able to get a certificate of appreciation that most people would get, I would say, when they do honorably retire from our president at the time. Because I have a son, like he's looking up to me near or far. Kids are like sponges, and what they see, they absorb, they carry out. And I really wanted him to see me overcome and not be the opposite and not make it. The advice that I have is the importance of networking, right? And volunteering, just a few hours, maybe a month, a week. depending on which role you want to take. But from me doing that, I was exposed to other professionals in various other fields. And I got to learn firsthand and kind of see firsthand, after hearing their own interviews and hearing them speak and connecting with them, what it's like, and even being part of a mentorship program. So I had a few mentors during my bachelor's program and my master's that really, they either corrected me or guided me along the way. They were helpful, and then they were also critiqued me. Took that advice, and I feel like it helped mold me. We pretty much had to build up the program from scratch. So what that means is we had to do research on a regular basis, and something I still have to do. And this is when I realized, yes, all that I've learned, I'm actually able to apply. So when they're talking about, journal articles and reading up on those and the capstone, if it wasn't for me going to school, I didn't easily know where to derive my information for this real life stuff, where I'm going to be educating actual doctors, educating actual nurses, because I do, and teachers and more on these topics. So one thing I would always articulate is seek help for sure, because there's only, I forget the exact statistics, but to be a veteran and to be college educated, there's not many of us. There's really not many of us utilizing the benefits that many of us have been given, the GI Bill, the vocational rehabilitation. So I highly recommend being with a counselor or caseworker. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. But what I really liked was the turnaround time that the library did give me, because sometimes there would be an article that I wanted that wasn't available right away. So, the process to requesting a journal article or a regular article, and hey, here's the article you need within like 24 hours, 24, 48 hours was very helpful and useful. This is accelerated programming, so I needed stuff right away. I wouldn't have known where to go or how to use the interface or use the library if it wasn't for them coming to our class and giving us a lecture and providing us with the resources and what to do. So National was good for that. Let me really articulate, it is important to have free time. I would lose my mind. Again if I did not have free time. So what I do is now I try to maintain my fitness in a fun way, because it's not easy to apply fitness and fun together, right? Which is why, unless I think everyone would do it so easily. So I box. I was like, I know myself, so like that's why I harp the importance of becoming aware of yourself, self-care, awareness, all that. I actually did my first boxing match a few months ago, and it was exhilarating because you're forced to stay present and make sure you don't get hit in the face too much. And so with that said, I do that. When I was in the Marine Corps, I made it to become a black belt. In martial arts, Marine Corps martial arts, years ago. So don't ask me to do a move now off the bat, but I can still break ball. So yes, Spshelle, no vowel. What happened when she saw me? So when she first saw me, she thought, wow, she's special. Felt that she wanted to name me Spshelle, with the spelling and all. So what's interesting is the nurses, kind of try to sway her otherwise, like, you don't want that name, like, and all of a sudden my mom said, this is her name and this is how it's gonna be spelled, that's it. And so that's what happened, and that's the story I was told. While going to school, I did work for the Department of Veterans Affairs for equivalent to 3 years, which includes my work study time. And while I was there, I did a 9-month project where we assessed the travel claims office. And we found out that veterans weren't getting their travel claims on time. And so, or in a timely manner. And so we assessed the process and figured out what is it that's going on. And we were able to eliminate certain barriers that kept veterans from getting their their travel claims and time. And so we ultimately saved the government both time and money for the 9-month Lean Sigma process. We were able to utilize me a four-man team pretty much. And so that's just an example of what I plan to work on in a few more months after I take a few more quality control classes, a few more classes, learning more about data and at the doctoral level. And so I hope is to do research that is very practical, which is why I chose this more practical degree versus a PhD, because I like to be hands-on. Arizona State University, which is the school I'm going to at this time, offers a lot of resources to help me with that. I remember one person dropping out in the middle of the 9 months, and they had a major task, and I felt very intimidated and very concerned that we wouldn't even be able to complete the task in time to ultimately save the government time and money. And so I felt challenged. I felt what do I do? So at that point in time, what I did end up doing was kind of reverting back to what I knew, right? In the Marine Corps, we adapt and overcome. Right. And so it's very important for us to adapt and overcome, because uncertainty, I think, is something that is going to be a part of our lives forever. Right. And we're seeing it now with COVID. It's disrupted everyone's life in some way, shape, or form. Right. I have friends who are authors, still writing books. We're still carrying on. And, there's so much resiliency to that. And so for me, I kind of tapped into what was at my base. I grew up in a religious household, so I tapped into praying more and such. And then another situation that I know I'm speaking about this a lot, but it was a major turning point in my life, was when I was expecting to be a lifer in the Marine Corps. I was going to be there for the whole 20 plus years until boom, I ended up having to be hospitalized and having to retire. That shifted everything. What am I going to do for a living? What am I going to do next? And so, me being attached and helping that one gentleman at One Warrior Project really made the turning point. Like, man, yeah, he's fighting every day, even despite his setbacks and such. And this motivates me to want other people to understand what he's going through. Even with some of the challenges, and it's challenging being in mental health, taking on people's issues and hearing a lot, even if you're not a therapist, because I'm not a therapist, I am an educator, but I still tackle heavy subjects and topics. And I feel very equipped because of personal experience, but also my education to do that.